Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Polished Beauty segment with our co-contributor, Dr. Daisy Ayim. She's a triple board certified cosmetic surgeon and OBGYN and founder of the Polished Beauty podcast. Today's conversation may stop your heart, but in the best way possible, because we're joined by someone who doesn't just treat heart failure, he walks the fine line between hope and heartbreak every single day. Dr. Dmitry Yaranov is a board-certified heart failure and transplant cardiologist based in Memphis, Tennessee. He's on the front lines of treating some of the most critically ill cardiac patients, individuals whose survival often depends on LVADs, left ventricular assist devices, or full heart transplants. But this isn't just a story about science or technology. It's about humanity. In a viral post that took the medical community and the internet by storm, Dr. Yaranov wrote, "A truth it took me 16 years in medicine to say out loud. I step out of the room, give a quiet nod to the nurse, then walk into the next room, like I didn't just lose someone I was fighting to save. But later, when no one's watching, I fall apart. In my car, in the call room, sometimes in the supply closet. I cry. I go over every detail. I blame myself. I blame the system. I wonder if I missed something, if I'm still good enough, if I ever was. And I carry that loss, not just in my mind, but in my body, in my chest, my gut, quietly. You don't just carry a stethoscope, you carry ghosts." That kind of transparency is rare in medicine, but the truth is, physician grief is very real and vastly underaddressed. A 2023 JAMA internal medicine study found that nearly 1 in 3 physicians experience symptoms of depression, and among those who experience patient death, up to 80% report prolonged emotional impact. And yet, the culture of medicine demands that they compartmentalize to continue doing the jobs. Welcoming now to the show is the amazing Dr. Dmitry Yaranov and triple board certified cosmetic surgeon, Dr. Daisy Ayim. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So, Dr. Yaranov, your words stopped so many of us in our tracks. You don't just carry a stethoscope, you carry ghosts. It was haunting and beautifully honest. What was the tipping point that made you share this particular side of your story? And what has the response revealed about the silent epidemic of unprocessed grief in medicine?
Just like it reads, I've lost a patient. It wasn't a recent loss. It was burning me for a while, and that patient became a friend through the years of me taking care of him. And just like I said in the post, I walked out of the room, I nodded to the nurse, and I had to go straight back into the next room. And I kept that weight with me the whole day. And then I got into the car and I broke down. That's the time when I realized that, just like you said, this part of medicine, the grief we carry around is not being talked about. And I do have this social media outlet. And it took me about 4 months to really get the guts to put it out there and start talking about. And when I shared it, I didn't expect much at first, but response was so overwhelming. I had my colleagues that I work with right now calling me, offering me support. Some of them saying that, hey, I felt that too, and I just didn't have enough words to express it. And then take it a step forward. Patients started writing to me, and I think that's what mattered the most. Patients started telling me that, wow, I never thought you would feel something like this. I never thought you feel this way. And that's when I knew that, the grief we carry is not just, personal grief. It's universal. And that's where that phrase comes really, up to life, where we just don't carry stethoscopes, we carry ghosts.
And that kind of honesty not only humanizes you, but it dignifies your patients. Like you just said, you're giving voice to every doctor who's been taught to bury their sorrow and just keep moving. So thank you for being so transparent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Doc, you treat patients with very advanced heart conditions or heart failures, like we mentioned, from left ventricular assist devices to transplant. And it's very tough being an obstetrician, that acute setting. So I understand a split decision can change the outcome and for the good or for the bad. How do you remain emotionally grounded while navigating such high stakes, life and death situations every day?
Yeah, it's for sure never easy. I don't think you ever get used to losing someone. It's just to learn to give yourself a space, and that's what I had to teach myself how to do. Because certainly that's not the skill they gave me in medical school and my training. I give myself space, whether it's in a walk or it's in my car and when I wake back home, or sometimes even like a deep breath before I walk into the next room. Sometimes I talk to those patients, those that pass. Sometimes I whisper their names, just to get the strength to be grounded. I remind myself all the time, and I think that's what keeps me going, is that grief, the grief, the process is its true price of compassion, and I would not, ever give it away or attempt to lose it. If you feel it deeply, it means you care, and that grounds you. That means you keep your purpose.
Absolutely.
Now, in your post, you mention blaming the system. I want to unpack that. So the U.S. is facing a projected shortage of over 120,000 physicians by the year 2034. And burnout is now classified as a workplace syndrome by the WHO. From your perspective, what systemic failures are contributing to this emotional and, more importantly, operational breakdown? And what do you think needs to change?
We are expected to be perfect. We're expected to be fast, efficient, emotionally detached. That's the system expectation from us. And we try to live up to those expectations under immense pressure, and it comes from multiple different, sources. There's definitely no space in the system for processing grief or even trauma. There's a culture, and I would characterize this culture as a culture of silence. You lose a patient, you move on. If you're saying I'm not okay, it makes you weak. That's not sustainable. We need to have a shift in this culture. We need to understand that all the healthcare workers, not just doctors, all the people that work in our first people, they need time to reflect. And I think that can be the first step into fixing the burnout.
I agree with you, Charles. I totally agree with you. Being a physician, I couldn't have said it any more beautifully. I think one of the problem also is just the fact that, if a physician was to take a certain time off just to do exactly what you've stated, you have to explain yourself. And in some way, you're feeling like you're being reprimanded for just taking time to do exactly what you've just sounded off. So thank you for saying that.
It's heartbreaking. The two of you it hit so close to home with what you both just said, because you're trained to save lives, not navigate bureaucracy. But the system keeps asking doctors to be heroes without giving them capes. And that's a big problem, right? It's a problem.
100%.
So, Doc, you've expanded your outreach across underserved regions in Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi. What are the key access issues you're seeing, and how are you working to overcome them on the ground?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, in my space, many patients come extremely late. And it's not because they didn't want care, it's just because our system failed them. They never reached them. And they weren't either referred at the time, they weren't educated at the time, and they just didn't have access. There is such a notion of cardiology deserts in this country, and you'd be surprised, but more than 50% of Americans live in cardiology deserts. What does that mean? It means that you do not have access to a cardiologist. I'm not even talking about advanced heart failure cardiologist. I'm talking about a regular cardiologist in your county. So we are building a network. We already built a large network across our tri-state area. And this network is truly the goal for it is to bring care to the patients. Just more like to collapse the distance, and not just physical distance, but more so educational distance, informational distance between the rural community and the life-saving procedures, especially in those with very advanced disease. To me, in a sense, that's also like caring goes to, making sure that those that we don't repeat the same mistake and misses, and those patients who come and I cannot help anymore, that doesn't happen again.
Now, I want to talk about mentorship. because shaping future cardiologists means addressing not just their work base and their knowledge base, but their emotional stamina. So how do you teach your mentees to care deeply without drowning in it? What does, in your words, true emotional resilience look like in your world?
Mentorship is critically important for me. I became who I became because of my mentors, primarily because of my mentors. And now I take big pride of in giving it back to my mentees. And, main thing is I try to lead by example. I'll let them see my emotional side. We debrief the cases, we debrief our successes and failures. I don't teach them just clinical decision making. I don't teach them how to do the sophisticated procedures, but the whole process, that happens thereafter. I tell them that's okay to feel this way. It's okay for you to feel this way, and it's okay for me to feel this way. It's actually necessary to feel this way so you can keep going. You can stay grounded. We talk
Right.
about it. We talk about why we show up the next day after both the failure and success. And I think that's what really sustains the career in medicine and prevents that burnout.
There's a growing emphasis on physician wellness. In fact, there's a current, as we know, being a physician is one of the highest suicide rate in the U.S. And that's something that's not being spoken about out loud or clearly, that physicians are actually taking their lives. So for you, what does that look like to have this emotional support, given that the root cause analysis for why physicians are committing suicide is not really being addressed publicly or privately in our local system? How does that look like to help us?
We need a cultural shift. A culture where saying, I'm not okay, actually does not mean you're weak. It means you're human. And I also do think we need for leadership to recognize that emotional labor is a labor. It's not just, human, weakness. And I like the systems that already start popping up there who do not just pride themselves by checking the box saying that, hey, we got a yoga class every quarter, or like we're handing out, I don't know, those chocolate bars. A system that actually, restructures the expectations from healthcare workers that they're humans primarily, and just not a highly functioning machines. Whether it's a nurse, whether it's a nurse practitioner, physician assistants, or a physician. Again, I think recognition of the fact that emotional labor is a labor, and it's not something to ignore. Again, I feel like that unhealed grief in medicine is what drives the burnout. And we need to start talking about more and more and more.
And I love how earlier on you said your mentees, you lead by guidance in the sense that they are watching your every move, and your vulnerability is going to help a great deal in framing what's expected and what's not. And that's what creates legacy, not just teaching technique, but showing young doctors how to feel and survive the weight of what they do. And you're doing such a good job.
Thank you.
Losing a patient is very hard. I think that's one thing for us physicians we never really want to experience. But depending on the specialty you're in, at some point it is going to happen. I just wanted to know if you care to share with our audience what sort of personal rituals or beliefs or thoughts or things you do to overcome yourself so that you can keep going and not get weighed down.
Absolutely. I always come back to this. This job isn't about control. It's about presence. I couldn't change the outcome in this patient. It didn't matter what I did. I tried real hard. I fought for him, and that matters. And that matters to me. And reflection on this, daily reflection, breathing techniques. I breathe, I reset, I remind myself, I care, I still do. And that, helps me stay grounded. I take care of myself. I take care of my mind. I take care of my body. And those are daily minor stones that, build into this, big wall of, that keeps me going. I think that's why I keep showing up every day.
Wow.
Yeah. And sure enough, you are. Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was the patient's name that you lost?
I think it'd be fairer to just say because it was the patient, information. You know, uh,
Oh, but the person has just the name. We keep saying the patient. I just wanted to honor their name, but
Mike.
you don't have to share.
It's Mike.
Mike. That's all I needed to
Okay.
know.
Yeah. Sorry.
They,
But yeah, it was
this, in many respects, it's for Mike because honestly, that post really conveyed a message that allowed me to say, wait, we need to talk about this. We need to share this with the world.
absolutely.
So, Dr. Yaranov, thank you so much for reminding us that behind every transplant and every diagnosis and every code blue is a human being doing the impossible and still choosing to care. And you're setting a great example. Your vulnerability and, more importantly, your advocacy and the relentless pursuit of equitable care are not just healing hearts, right? You're healing the culture of medicine itself. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for talking about it. I really appreciate it.
For those listening, you can follow his incredible journey and so much more on the gram, on TikTok, on YouTube, and on Facebook at heart_transplant_doc. And that wraps this beautiful edition of Polished Beauty with the incredible Dr. Daisy Ayim, triple board certified cosmetic surgeon and OBGYN. You can find her directly on the gram at Dr. Daisy Ayim and at the Polished Beauty podcast. Stick around. We'll be right back after the break with more on 710 WR, the voice of New York. You're listening to A Moment of Zen. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this. A Moment of Zen is brought to you by the Polished Beauty podcast with Dr. Daisy Ayim. Hey, ambitious women, ready to shine on the inside and out? Tune in to the Polished Beauty podcast, where we talk about business, beauty, brains, and body all in one spot. Meet Dr. Daisy Ayim, triple board certified cosmetic surgeon, pro-aging advocate, fitness enthusiast, and your go-to for real talk on leveling up every part of your life. The Polished Beauty podcast is your dose of ambition meets empowerment. For more information, head to polishedbeautypodcast.com.